I'm 32F, the youngest in my family by 3 years. My older brother, Adrian, 35M, has always been the family's shining star, at least according to my parents. He could fail an exam and still be brilliant, quit 3 jobs in a row and still be finding himself. Meanwhile, I could graduate with honors, land a good job, and apparently still lack ambition because my life didn't revolve around them. It's been this way since childhood. My parents, Mark and Helena, have a gift for turning small achievements of mine into footnotes while blowing Adrian's out of proportion. Family dinners were often just long speeches about Adrian's potential, while I got told to help clear the table. If I dared to speak up about the double standard, the whole room would shift into damage control, not for me, but for Adrian's feelings. Then there's Aunt Lydia, my mother's older sister, who has never hidden her distaste for me. She's the kind of person who could offer you cake with one hand while using the other to push you out the door. In her eyes, I'm the family's difficult one. She once told me at a Christmas party that I had a knack for turning special moments into debates. This after I'd simply disagreed with her about a movie. The tension between me and my family has been building for years, but the latest blow came in the form of a carefully orchestrated exclusion. It started when my cousin Rebecca, 28F, called me on a Tuesday evening. Rebecca and I used to be close as kids, but over time she's become more like Lydia's apprentice, learning all the subtle ways to dig at someone while pretending it's kindness. Her voice was chipper, overly sweet. "Hey, just wanted to give you a heads up before you see it online. We're throwing this big thing for your parents' 40th anniversary. It's going to be amazing. Dinner, speeches, dancing, the works." I leaned back in my chair. "Okay, and I'm hearing about this why?" There was a pause, and then the shift. "Well, I guess you're not exactly invited." I let the words hang for a moment. "Not invited to my own parents' anniversary? Don't make it sound so bad," she rushed. "It's just, Aunt Lydia thought it might be better to keep things peaceful. You know how you and your mom can get." Translation: "We don't want you there because you won't sit quietly while we make little digs at you in front of everyone." I asked, "So everyone else is going?" She hesitated, but not for long. "Yeah, everyone." When I hung up, I didn't feel hurt so much as unsurprised. This is exactly the sort of thing they'd do, and the fact they didn't even bother to come up with a convincing excuse told me they assumed I'd just accept it. A few days later, I ran into Aunt Lydia at the grocery store. She was in the produce aisle, examining a stack of apples like she was judging a beauty pageant. "Oh, there you are," she said, as if we'd scheduled the meeting. "I'm sure you've heard by now. It's for the best, really. You always stir up trouble at these things." She smiled like she'd just handed me a compliment. I smiled right back. "Suit yourself." Her face lit up, clearly thinking I'd conceded. She pushed her cart away with that little air of satisfaction she always carries, never realizing that in that moment, I'd already decided exactly how I was going to respond. In the family group chat, which I was still part of, though I suspected my presence there was just so they could perform their togetherness in front of me, the planning took over. Messages every day. What color should the napkins be? Adrian's speech is going to be the highlight. We should hire a photographer so we can post the pictures. I didn't contribute. I didn't even react to the messages. I just watched. While they were busy with centerpiece arrangements and dessert tastings, I was making my own quiet plans. Plans that had nothing to do with centerpieces and everything to do with making sure they understood what it felt like to be blindsided. But the first real sign that they were still keeping tabs on me came 1 week before the anniversary. Adrian called out of nowhere. "No hello, no catching up. Just, you should probably apologize to Mom. I think she'd let you come if you did." I asked, "Apologize for what?" He sighed, like I was being intentionally dense. "You know how she feels when you push back on things. It's not worth the drama. Just say you're sorry and come." That was the moment I realized they actually thought I was sitting here, miserable, just waiting for an invite. They had no idea I was already booked for something else. I kept my voice light. "Can't. I'm busy that weekend." He sounded suspicious. "Doing what?" I let the silence stretch just long enough to make him wonder. "You'll see." Adrian didn't press me after that, but I knew he'd be carrying my vague answer back to the family like a dog proudly delivering a bone. That's how it always worked. One of them would fish for information, then report to the others so they could pick it apart and decide how to frame it against me. The week leading up to my parents' anniversary was strangely quiet. The group chat still buzzed with updates, but my phone calls stopped. No one accidentally ran into me at the store. It was as if they had all silently agreed to shut me out entirely until after their big event. I didn't mind. In fact, the silence made my own planning easier. I'd been working on it for months in small, careful steps. No grand announcements, no social media hints, just quiet, deliberate arrangements. I wanted this to be something they couldn't see coming. 2 days before the anniversary, I got another call, this time from Rebecca. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. I just wanted to make sure there aren't going to be any surprises from you, she said. The way she said surprises made it sound like she was talking about sabotage. Why would there be? I asked. She let out a light laugh that wasn't light at all. Because you have a history of making things about you. Aunt Lydia still talks about the time you stole attention at Grandma's birthday by bringing your own cake. That cake was for Grandma, I reminded her, because no one else had ordered one. That's not how Lydia tells it, she replied, her voice tightening. I didn't take the bait. Well, don't worry, Rebecca. I won't be anywhere near your party. I could almost hear her smirk. Good. Everyone's going to have such a good time without the tension. That word, tension, had become their code for me, simply existing without nodding along to everything they said. The next day, I stopped by a small boutique downtown to pick up the last item I needed for my own plans. The shop owner, a warm woman named Clara, handed me the carefully wrapped package and whispered, "You're going to stun them." I smiled. That's the idea. I spent the evening packing, my apartment quiet except for the occasional hum of my kettle. I thought about the family sitting in their respective houses, laying out their outfits for the big celebration, rehearsing their speeches. I pictured Adrian practicing his emotional tribute to our parents, the one I knew would be less about them and more about painting himself as the devoted son. By the morning of the anniversary, I was already at the airport. I didn't post anything online, didn't text anyone, didn't leave a trace. If anyone from the family tried to check on me, they'd get nothing but silence. Around midday, while I was waiting for my connecting flight, my phone buzzed with a message from Aunt Lydia. Still time to change your mind. Your mother would love to see you if you came with the right attitude. I didn't respond. Instead, I looked out the window at the runway, my mind already miles ahead of where I was sitting. Meanwhile, in the group chat, photos started trickling in. The venue was decorated in soft gold and cream, tables set with towering floral arrangements. Someone posted a video of my parents arriving, beaming, while Adrian held the door open like he was personally responsible for the event existing. Then came the speeches. Rebecca posted a clip of herself holding a microphone, talking about the legacy of love my parents had built. Lydia uploaded a picture of the dessert table, captioned, "Perfect in every way." And still, not one person noticed my absence enough to question it publicly. Not one, "Wish you were here," or "We miss you." It was almost impressive, the way they could erase me so completely. By the time their dinner was in full swing, I was halfway across the ocean. The flight was long, but I barely noticed. I kept thinking about how this moment, this entire weekend, was going to shift once my own plans came to light. Not out of spite alone, but because I wanted them to feel, for once, the shock of being left out of something monumental. The morning after the anniversary, while they were likely still nursing the glow of their perfect night, I was in a small, sunlit square thousands of miles away. My best friend Emily was there too, grinning as she adjusted her camera. "You're really going to keep this quiet until the pictures are posted?" she asked. "Absolutely," I said. "I want them to find out the way I've had to find out about half the major events in this family, from someone else's post." She laughed. Petty, but powerful. As we walked toward the small chapel, I could almost hear the echo of Aunt Lydia's voice from that day in the grocery store. "It's better this way. You always stir up trouble." If only she knew how much trouble was about to land in her lap. The ceremony was everything I wanted. Intimate, beautiful, free of any forced smiles or veiled insults. When Emily started taking photos, she didn't just snap a few. She captured every detail. That was the point. I knew once those pictures went out, they'd travel fast. My family loves to monitor each other's lives online, especially mine. Every haircut, every new outfit, every change in my job, it all gets filtered through their private commentary channels. This time, though, there wouldn't be any subtle changes for them to dissect. It would be something they couldn't possibly downplay or spin into a criticism without exposing just how out of the loop they'd been. As Emily showed me the first set of photos on her camera screen, I felt a flicker of anticipation. Not guilt, not hesitation, anticipation. The morning after the ceremony, I woke to the sound of church bells somewhere in the distance. The air drifting in through the open balcony doors was warm, carrying the scent of fresh bread from a bakery below. For the first time in years, I felt completely at peace. Emily was already awake, sitting at the small desk in the corner of our hotel room with her laptop open. She looked up at me with a mischievous smile. "Ready?" she asked. I didn't even need to ask what she meant. "Post them." She tapped a few keys, then turned the screen toward me. The first image she uploaded was simple but striking. Me standing at the chapel doorway, sunlight catching the lace of my dress, smiling at someone just out of frame. The second was of the moment we exchanged vows, framed perfectly by the old stone arch. She didn't just post them to her own account. She tagged me in every single one. My profile was private, but I knew the tags would still light up the feeds of anyone who followed her. And Emily had a habit of accepting almost every friend request that came her way, including ones from my extended family. The captions were minimal. Just, "A perfect day for my perfect friend." It didn't take long. An hour later, Emily's phone started buzzing. Then mine. At first, it was just notifications from strangers liking the pictures, locals she'd met on her travels, acquaintances from her photography circles. But then the names started appearing. Rebecca viewed the post. Then Adrian. Then Aunt Lydia. I knew the exact moment Lydia saw the one where my husband was slipping the ring onto my finger because my phone started ringing almost instantly. I let it go to voicemail. 2 minutes later, a text came through from Adrian. "What is this? You got married?" Without telling anyone. I didn't reply. Another call came, this time from my mother. I let that go to voicemail too. When Rebecca called, she didn't even wait for me to say hello. "Are you out of your mind? You get married and don't invite your own family." The irony almost made me laugh. "You mean the way I wasn't invited to my parents' anniversary? That's different," she snapped. That was about keeping the peace. I let a pause hang there, long enough for her to feel it. So was this. And I hung up. That's when the group chat erupted. Messages flew so fast I couldn't read them all in real time. Lydia was furious, typing paragraphs about disrespect and family tradition. Adrian insisted I'd humiliated them all. Rebecca tried to rally everyone into agreeing that I'd done it just to spite them, which, admittedly, wasn't entirely wrong. Then, in the middle of the chaos, someone posted a photo from the anniversary dinner. It was my parents at the head table, smiling, with Adrian on one side and Lydia on the other. The caption read, "The perfect night, so much love in this family." Beneath it, Rebecca had commented, "Nothing could ruin this memory." Emily saw it too and leaned over, smirking. "Do you want me to post the bouquet toss next?" "Not yet," I said. "Let them stew." But the real spectacle happened later that afternoon. Apparently, they were hosting a post-anniversary reception for extended friends and neighbors at my parents' house. I only learned about it because a mutual acquaintance, Mara, sent me a voice note from the event. In it, you can hear the low hum of conversation, then the sharp intake of breath from someone across the room as Emily's photos popped up on someone's phone. There was a sudden hush, followed by Lydia's voice, tight, trembling with outrage. "Is this some kind of joke? She got married? Without us?" More murmurs. Then my mother's voice, shaky and thin. "She wouldn't do that." "Not really." Mara swore she heard someone else mutter, "It's all over social media." And then came the moment I would replay in my head for years. A chair scraped loudly against the floor. Lydia, apparently trying to storm out of the room, tripped over the edge of a rug. The gasp from the crowd was almost comical. Mara said she didn't exactly faint, but she did collapse into an armchair, fanning herself dramatically while Adrian and Rebecca fussed over her like she'd just been delivered catastrophic news. Meanwhile, people started whispering in corners, scrolling through the photos on their phones. The image of me laughing under a string of twinkling lights was apparently making the rounds, and every time someone new saw it, there was another ripple of hushed commentary. By the time Mara left, the mood of the party had shifted completely. What was meant to be another round of celebrating my parents had turned into a gathering where the main topic was my wedding, the one they hadn't even known about until hours ago. When I finally checked my phone again that evening, the group chat had gone strangely quiet. Only one new message stood out, from my mother. "We need to talk." No congratulations. No questions about my husband. Just 4 words, heavy with the same mixture of disappointment and control she'd been using on me since I was a teenager. I put the phone face down on the nightstand. Emily, sitting on the balcony, glanced back at me. "So, what's the next move?" she asked. I thought about it. The temptation to fire back with something cutting was strong. But then I remembered the way they had so easily justified excluding me, the way they had decided I wasn't worth a place at their table. I didn't answer my mother's message that night, or the next day, not because I was avoiding her, exactly, more like I was savoring the silence that had been missing from my life for far too long. The constant background noise of their expectations, the ever-present pressure to perform or apologize or explain myself. It all felt like a weight I could finally put down, at least for a little while. Instead, Emily and I spent the entire next morning wandering through the city, soaking up the calm that contrasted so sharply with the chaos I'd left behind. We started with coffee in a quiet little courtyard tucked away from the main streets. The tables were shaded by climbing ivy, and the air smelled faintly of fresh pastries and blooming jasmine. I watched people strolling by, some with dogs, some lost in their own worlds, and I realized how much I'd missed just being able to breathe without wondering how the next family drama might be waiting for me. We moved on to explore narrow cobblestone streets, the kind that wind around like secret paths, lined on either side by flower boxes bursting with geraniums and petunias. The sunlight filtered through in golden slants, dust motes dancing in the warm beams. For the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't the one trying to keep peace or avoid triggering anyone. I was just a visitor in a beautiful place, free to enjoy it on my own terms. At one point, Emily pulled me into a tiny art shop, the kind with a creaky wooden door and paintings stacked against every wall. The shop smelled like turpentine and old paper, and the soft classical music playing in the background only added to the quiet charm. I found a small canvas, the image of a sunset over rolling hills, and it reminded me of the view from our hotel balcony. I bought it without hesitation. I wanted something to take home, a reminder that there was a world beyond the narrow boundaries my family had tried to trap me in. It was the kind of day that fills you up instead of draining you, the kind of day I needed. One that wasn't colored by backhanded compliments, careful silences, or the constant, exhausting dance of pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. But as much as I tried to lose myself in the moment, the silence from me was clearly doing its job back home. When I finally checked my phone that afternoon, I was met with a flood of notifications, 23 missed calls staring back at me, each one a little heavier than the last. My mother had called 9 times. Each call came closer together than the last, her persistence a sharp contrast to the cool, controlled messages she usually sent. Adrian had left me 5 voicemails, each one more frantic and pleading than the previous. I listened to snippets, a few apologies mixed with anger, pleas to just talk, accusations that I was tearing the family apart. His voice cracked on one of them, the frustration barely masked by his usual arrogance. Rebecca's texts were a curious mix. One moment, she was asking with what sounded like genuine concern, "Are you okay? Please tell me you're safe." Then, in the very next message, she shifted tone entirely. "You've embarrassed the whole family. How could you do this?" It was the kind of passive-aggressive guilt trip she'd perfected over the years. But the last message that caught my eye was from Aunt Lydia. "You've shown your true colors. Actions have consequences." I nearly laughed. Actions do have consequences, of that I was certain. The only difference was that they weren't used to being on the receiving end. The irony was almost delicious. 2 days later, I arrived home, the quiet city behind me replaced by the familiar hum of the neighborhood. I barely unpacked before the doorbell rang, sharp and insistent. Through the peephole, I saw Adrian and my parents standing there. My mother's mouth was pressed into that thin, controlled line she always wore when trying to appear calm and collected, but the tightness in her jaw betrayed the fury simmering just beneath the surface. I opened the door just enough to lean casually against the frame, making it clear I wasn't inviting them inside. "Can we come in?" my mother asked, her voice careful but edged with steel. "No," I said plainly, not bothering to soften the refusal. Adrian took a step forward, trying to sound reasonable. "We need to talk about what you did." "What I did?" I raised an eyebrow. "You mean living my life without asking for permission?" "That's not the point," my father interjected, his voice heavy with disappointment. Family is supposed to share important milestones. I couldn't help the smile that tugged at the corner of my lips. Like how you shared your anniversary with me? That was different, my mother said sharply. We didn't want conflict. And I didn't want conflict on my wedding day. I replied evenly, meeting her gaze head on. So I made the same decision you did. I just didn't expect you to appreciate being on the receiving end. Then, from the sidewalk behind them, came Aunt Lydia's voice, thin and sharp, like a blade slipping between the cracks. She had apparently come along but stayed back, lurking like some resentful chaperone. You hurt your parents. Publicly. I looked directly at her, feeling a quiet fury rise. You humiliated me first. Privately. Repeatedly. Don't pretend this was about protecting anyone. It was about control. Adrian's jaw tightened, frustration bubbling to the surface. You're making this bigger than it is. No, I said, stepping back inside my apartment. You made it small when it mattered. Now you get to live with the fact that you weren't part of something important because of choices you made. Before they could respond, I closed the door firmly, the sound echoing like a final punctuation mark. I stood there for a moment, listening to the muffled chorus of Lydia's complaints, my mother's hurried shushing, and Adrian muttering about not getting through to me. Their voices faded as they walked away, leaving behind the silence I hadn't realized I'd been craving. That evening, I blocked them all from my phone. The family group chat? I left it. Social media? Every single one of them was unfollowed and restricted without a second thought. Months passed. The only updates I received about them came through mutual acquaintances, and every time, the story was the same. My wedding had become the hot topic in their social circles. The photos Emily had taken circulating online, shared and reshared in hushed whispers and knowing glances. Meanwhile, the anniversary they had so carefully planned barely got a mention beyond the walls of the family home. Lydia still complained bitterly about the scene at the post-anniversary reception, insisting I had engineered everything to upstage them. She wasn't entirely wrong, though she would never admit the part where they handed me the perfect opportunity on a silver platter. My parents sent a letter once, requesting to start fresh. But it wasn't an apology. It was a carefully crafted list of reasons why I had misunderstood them, why they had only ever wanted the best for me, and why my actions had hurt the family. I tore it in half without replying. The truth was simple. I didn't miss them. I didn't miss the constant judgment, the backhanded compliments, the way they dismissed anything that didn't fit their narrow vision of how I should live. My life felt quieter, lighter, freed from the crushing weight of their disapproval. Now, a year later, the situation remains exactly as I left it. We have no contact. They still gossip about me, according to occasional mutual acquaintances. And I still don't care. Because the reality is this: they wanted me small. They wanted me silent. Instead, they got to watch from the sidelines while I built a life without them. A life they couldn't rewrite, spin, or claim credit for. And that is exactly how it's going to stay. Thanks for watching. Share your thoughts in the comments. If you like this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this.